The purpose of this video is to review when it's appropriate to use the Pythagorean theorem and how we use it to find missing side lengths. Now, this information can also be found at the front of the room on our word wall, but I thought that this would be good in really separating out the two different uses of it. So without further ado, here we go. The Pythagorean theorem formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b are both legs and c is the hypotenuse. Now, the Pythagorean theorem can only be used if it is a right triangle, and I have to have at least two of the side lengths. That's really important. What I see a lot of people misuse this formula for is they start plugging in angles. The Pythagorean theorem can only be used to help us find sides. That's super important. So if I were to use this formula on the two problems below, you can really see it used in two different ways. So on example A, in the triangle above, I'm trying to solve for a missing blank. Now C value, C is across from the right angle in this case, and the side that's always across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. So when I set up to solve for the hypotenuse, here's what I do. The formula is, and I really recommend that until you have this formula memorized, you always write it down to start. The A and B values are our legs. Now it doesn't matter whether you call 8A or 15A, but these are both the legs. So one of them must be A and the other one must be B. Now we can substitute these values into the equation so that it reads 8 squared plus 15 squared equals the hypotenuse squared. The hypotenuse is always by itself on one side of the equation because it's the different side, it's the longest side. We'll continue to evaluate this. 8 squared is 64. 15 squared, is 225. And at this point, it's still equal to c squared. Now, what we're trying to solve for is isolated. It's on its own side of the equal sign. So, with the left side telling me to add these values together, that's exactly what I'm going to do. 64 plus 225 is 289. Now to finish solving this, I need to get rid of this exponent. And to get rid of an exponent of 2, we'll use what is called a square root. So the square root of 289 will leave me with just c. And the square root of 289 is 17. This next problem, while it is still a Pythagorean theorem problem, I know two sides, it's a right triangle, I am solving for something else. In this case, I'm solving for the b value. I'm solving for a missing leg. So we're going to set up this problem the same way that we did before. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now a and b are both of our legs. That means that 12 is a leg, just like what I'm solving for is the other. I'm going to substitute in what I have, and you'll notice that this is a little different from what we did in the last problem. 12 squared plus b squared equals 37 squared. 37 is the hypotenuse. It's what's across from the right angle. So 37 is our c value. We're going to evaluate what we have. However, I want to remind you that this equal sign is in our way. So we're just going to evaluate to whatever 12 squared is. We'll keep the b squared where it is, and also 37 squared. Now for me to solve for b, I need b to be what's called isolated, right? I need b to be by itself. So because this 144 is being added to it, it's positive right now, I'm going to subtract it on both sides of the equation so that b is isolated. I've canceled it out on the left. I'm left with b squared equals 1369 minus 144. Now our last step is the same. For me to get rid of the exponent on b, I need to use a square root. So b is the square root of 1225, which is 35. Now, where I see some students go wrong on this problem is they always assume that they're solving for the c value. Remember, solving for a leg, not the hypotenuse. And the other place where I see kids go wrong is they use the wrong square root button. So just make sure that you're not using the button that looks like this. That's a cube root. And you're not using the button that looks like this. That takes the square root using the value from your previous answer, which just is a hot mess. So just make sure you're using the plain old square root. Some of your calculators may have a 2 in front, and that is okay. So plain or with the 2. If you have any questions, please send me an email, and I'll see you when I return.